Hey guys, it's Luke back on Sean's channel. Today I'm going to be bringing you my Spright deck profile. Sprites are finally reprinted recently, so they're a lot cheaper to buy now than they were before. I already went through the different ways to play Spright on the channel. If you guys want to check out that video, please go ahead. But this is the build that I've been playing a lot and I'm really happy with. I think Spright's a very powerful and easy to learn deck. So without further ado, this is my Spright deck. Starting things off, we have 3 copies of Spright Blue. Spright Blue, of course, is really good. One thing I'll say about all Spright monsters is that they all have an inherent summon effect, that if you control a level/rank 2 monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. That pretty much goes for all the Spright main deck monsters, just so you guys know so I'm not repeating that every time. But Spright Blue also has an effect that if this card is special summoned, you can add one Spright monster from your deck to your hand, which of course is absolutely great, because you're able to add any of the other Spright monsters which pretty much work as extenders to get your plays going. All of these effects only work when they're special summoned, so you want to be very careful about what you're normal summoning first before you go into your special summoning with the Spright monsters. That's why we have a lot of other level 2 monsters that where you don't really mind the normal summon of them, such as your Nimble monsters and also even your Swap Frog. So you really want to hold out on one of those cards before you can special summon any of your Spright monsters. But definitely run 3 copies of Spright Blue. 3 copies of Spright Jet. Spright Jet, of course, also has the inherent summon effect, but also when he is special summoned, you can add one Spright spell/trap card from your deck to your hand, which of course is really powerful because we run a lot of very powerful Spright spells, such as Spright Smashers, Spright Gambit Burst, even the trap card Spright Double Cross, but also you can even search out your Spright Starter if you want to overextend even more. So 3 copies of Spright Jet is definitely very important to run at 3. Rounding off the Spright monsters now, I like to run 1 copy of Spright Carrot and then 2 copies of Spright Red. These guys are fantastic because they have the inherent summon effect as well. So it's very easy to get these guys out on the board. But not only that, they work as negation effects as well. So Spright Red has the effect that when he's on the field and your opponent activates a monster effect, you can quick effect tribute one other level rank/link 2 monster, negate the effect, and if you tributed a rank/link 2 monster, you can destroy that monster, which of course is just really good. Spright Carrot has a very similar effect, but rather than negating monster effects, she negates spell/trap card effects. So when your opponent activates a spell/trap card, you can quick effect tribute one other level rank link 2 monster, negate that effect, and then if you tributed a rank/link 2 monster, you can destroy that card. These of course are very good. It's always great to have some effect negation that's easy to bring out, especially if we're going first, and this is definitely the most optimal ratio that I recommend running. So 2 copies of Red and 1 copy of Spright Carrot, definitely essential for the build. Now, taking heavy inspiration from the South American WCQ, I run 3 copies of Swap Frog. Swap Frog, of course, is very great because you can scare 1 water monster to special summon this card from your hand, so you don't even need to commit to a normal summon. And the reason why this is so good because there's other water monsters running this build, such as Nimble Angler, and Nimble Angler gets an effect when it's sent from hand or deck to the graveyard, which we'll get into a little bit later. So it's a really good card to have to kind of pop off that. But not only that, Swap Frog is a 1 card combo in order to go into our Toadally Awesome as well, thanks in part to the new Mirror Mage of the Ice Barrier, which of course is great in its own, but also considering that it's a normal summon that you're able to get a 1 card combo off of, he's a good starter because he's also a level 2 monster, so when he's normal summoned and you have a bunch of your Spright monsters in your hand, they're all live for their inherent summons, so I definitely recommend running 3 copies of Swap Frog. Definitely essential to run in the build. As previously mentioned, we like to run 1 copy of Mirror Mage of the Ice Barrier. This is a new card that came out recently, in Terminal Revenge. Not too much needs to be known about the effect of Mirror Mage as of right now. Honestly, all you need to know is that when Mirror Mage is sent to the graveyard, you're able to add your Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier to your hand, which of course is able to special summon Mirror Mage right back out from the graveyard in order to go for your Toadally Awesome. It's also a level 2 tuner which can come in if you guys wanted to do some synchro plays with this deck. I personally don't. I don't think it's fully necessary. I don't even run the Melfi package in this deck. But if you guys want to experiment with that, that's absolutely fine. But for me personally, I think 1 copy of Mirror Mage Ice Barrier is all you need for this build. We run 3 copies of Nimble Beaver. Beaver is a very good normal summon. It's probably a better normal summon than even your Swap Frog, because when Nimble Beaver is normal summoned, you can special summon 1 level 3 or lower Nimble monster from your deck or graveyard, which of course is very good. As soon as you normal summon Nimble Beaver, he's able to bring out another level 2, which is absolutely fantastic to go in for your main combo plays. Definitely the best normal summon in the deck, and I highly recommend running it at 3 copies. Then rounding off the level 2s, of course, we have 2 copies of Nimble Angler. As I mentioned before, Nimble Angler is great if we're sending off a Swap Frog, because Nimble Angler has the effect that if this card is sent from hand or deck to the graveyard, you can special summon up to 2 level 3 or lower Nimble monsters from your deck except Angler, which of course is great synergy with Nimble Beaver if you don't open a turn 1, because by simply sending Nimble Angler to the graveyard, you're able to special summon 2 of your Nimble Beavers from your deck. Fantastic for getting the plays going. And also, if you're really stuck, you just need to normal summon Nimble Angler. That's absolutely fine as well, because he's also a level 2 to make all of your Spright and Herald summons live. So 2 copies. I run a lot of hand traps in this deck. I know a lot of people in the comments constantly express that they don't like running hand traps, but I'm trying to make this as competitive as possible, so please bear with me. I like to run 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Although it is fire format, no one's really scared about using Ash Blossom anymore, because even when we are in a fire format, especially with Fiendsmiths coming in, they have so much better plays than special summoning the Fire Charmer and stealing that Ash Blossom from the graveyard to go for Link 3s. Snake Eyes and Fiendsmiths is ridiculously overpowered right now, so I think you are at this point better off just running Ash Blossom in the main deck now. Not only that, but also it's great for going against other decks such as Branded. 3 copies of Droll. Droll, of course, is very good. Fantastic lingering effect. To stop your opponent from really popping off, I definitely recommend running Droll at 3 copies in this build. I like to run 2 copies of Ghost Belle and 2 copies of Ghost Ogre. The main reason for this is that we also run 3 copies of Crossout Designator in this build, so I'm trying to cover as much ground as I possibly can to stop ourselves from getting interrupted, but also they're really good interruption for our opponent as well. Ghost Ogre especially is really good if you're going against a deck like Tenpai, and Ghost Belle is good if you're going against Snake Eyes as well. So not only are they good hand traps just to stop really powerful decks, but also that Crossout Designator we run in this build, it's really important to have targets. So if our opponent tries to mess with us with some of these cards, we have these guys in the deck for a Crossout Designator. So 2 Ghost Ogre and 2 Ghost Belle, I highly recommend running it in the build. 3 copies of Spright Starter. Spright Starter, of course, is really good. I'm really happy that this is unlimited now again. Spright Starter simply reads that you can special summon 1 Spright monster from your deck, but lose life points equal to its original attack. This is absolutely great for getting their combos going. Just instantly brings you out a Spright monster, and considering that the Spright monster you're bringing out of this is going to be special summoned, they'll get their special summon effects as well. I.e. your blue will search a monster, or your jet will search a spell trap. But not only that, if you want to really set up your protection as soon as you possibly can, using Spright Starter to bring out your Carrot or your Red is also a good way to ensure that your combos go off. So I definitely recommend running 3 copies of Starter. 1 copy of Spright Smashers. Smashers is a very good bit of interruption. It's a quick play spell that has the effect that you can banish 1 Spriggan's Tyrion or Spright Carrot from your hand or graveyard and activate one of these effects. The only effect that you can use with this deck would of course be the ones that directly involve your Spright monster. So what you do is you banish 1 Spright Carrot from your hand or your graveyard, and then you can banish 1 level, rank / link 2 monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls. So it's a really good banishing effect to get rid of some of your opponent's really problematic cards. So 1 copy of Spright Smashers is all you need. You're able to search it off a jet. 1 copy of Spright Gamma Burst. I find this to be really good, considering that all of our monsters are very weak. Having a card that's able to increase their attack and defense by 1400 is just really good. Not only that, considering that it's a quick play spell means that you can use it as a battle trick as well, because it simply reads that all level, rank and link 2 monsters you currently control in the field gain 1400 attack and defense until the end of this turn. But not only that, this also has a very good effect while it's in the graveyard as well, because if you didn't manage to OTK when you originally used Spright Gamma Burst, that during your main phase you can banish this card from the graveyard, target 1 level, rank or link 2 monster you control, it gains 1400 attack until the end of your opponent's turn, which of course is absolutely fantastic, especially if you're pairing this on Gigantic Spright, who has a link monster as material. You can get him up to 46, which is absolutely insane. So 1 copy of Spright Gamma Burst is all you need. You can also search it off a jet. 1 copy of Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier. This is what you search off your Mirror Mage when she's sent to the graveyard. And on activation of Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier, you're able to special summon that Mirror Mage of the Ice Barrier from your graveyard in order to go into your Toadally Awesome. You don't need to know any of the other effects of this card. That's the main reason why it's used. So 1 copy is all you need. 1 copy of Call by the Grave. Of course, we don't want to get interrupted. And also Call by the Grave is also a really good form of interruption for opponent as well, depending on what they're playing. And it's limited, so that's the only amount we're able to run Call by the Grave. So only 1 copy is all you can run in this deck. But as I previously mentioned, 3 copies of Crossout Designator. Crossout Designator is an absolutely insane card, and considering the amount of hand traps that we run, it's great to know that we have a lot of bases covered if our opponent is trying to interrupt us. So 3 copies of Crossout Designator I find to be really important for the deck. Into the traps now, 1 copy of Spright Double Cross. Spright Double Cross is actually very good. You can also search off a jet, so of course it's crazy, you only need to run it at 1 copy. It has the effect that you can target 1 monster on the field or in either graveyard, then activate one of these appropriate effects. Either 1, attach that targeted monster to a rank 2 monster you control as material. 2, place the targeted monster your opponent controls in a zone your link 2 monster points to and take control of it. Or 3, you can special summon the targeted monster from either graveyard to your zone that your Link 2 monster points to, which of course is really good. What we definitely recommend is that you use this to attach wood material of your opponents to your Gigantic Spright as material, because that way it's less likely your opponent's going to be able to get that monster back if you're going for Link plays or whatever, and you're probably already locked into level, rank, and Link 2 monsters anyways. So that's the main purpose of this card, but either way the other 2 effects are absolutely crazy too. So 1 copy of Double Cross. Then rounding us off, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Impermanence is an overall great hand trap, and also it's a good target if your opponent's trying to imperm us with a Crossout Designator. So 3 copies rounds off the deck. Going into the extra deck now, we'll start off with the AA-ZEUS monsters. 2 copies of Gigantic Spright. Fantastic card. All you need is 2 level 2 monsters in order to go into them. But you can also treat a Link 2 monster you control as a level 2 monster for his summon. Which of course is really good, because the original attack of this card that has a Fusion, Synchro, AA-ZEUS or Link monster as material, it becomes doubled. So it's an easy way to get your Gigantic Spright up to 3200 attack. He also has the effect that during the main phase, you can attach 1 material from a monster you control, more likely himself, but if you have another AA-ZEUS monster on the field, you can detach material from that card also. And if you do, you can special summon 1 level 2 monster directly from your deck. This is great for a couple of reasons. One of the more obvious reasons is, of course, it's a great extender, so when you're doing this, you can bring out any level 2 monster to extend your plays even further. But also, after this effect resolves for the rest of the turn, neither player can special summon monsters except for level, rank, or Link 2 monsters. So that's great, because as soon as this goes off, it immediately stops your opponent from special summoning stuff like Bestials or even the Beru or anything like that. So Gigantic Spright is really good and really important that it goes off. So 2 copies, all you need in the extra deck. 1 copy of Toadally Awesome. Swap Frog is a 1-card combo to go into Toadally Awesome, and Toadally Awesome is absolutely nuts on its own. It works as an Omni Negate. When your opponent activates an effect, you can tribute 1 Frog monster, tribute 1 Aqua monster in order to negate that effect, and then you can choose if you want to set that card to your field instead, which of course is just really good on its own. Toadally Awesome is an absolute beast of a card. Fantastic that we have a 1-card combo to go into an Omni Negate. I highly recommend running this package in the deck. 1 copy of number 2 Ninja Shadow Mosquito. Honestly, he's not an overly essential card, but the reason why I like him is that he has a good bit of protection, because he cannot be destroyed by battle, and also you take no damage from battles involving this card. You guys probably already know where this is going. The reason why we run number 2 is because he's a very easy way for us to go into Zeus if we're not locked into our level, rank, and Link 2 monster. So number 2 you're able to go into with 2+ level 2 monsters, and then you're able to attack in, you can take no damage, and you're able to overlay for Zeus, which is really good on its own. But if you want to boost up the materials on Zeus even more, I also recommend running 1 copy of Downerd Magician as well. So what you can do is use number 2, go in to battle, get it to attack, then on main phase 2 you're able to overlay for Downerd Magician and then overlay for Zeus, which is a fantastic way to make sure that Zeus has 2 board wipes. I definitely recommend running at this ratio in the deck. 1 Downerd, 1 number 2, 1 Zeus. Very important for the deck. Now a card I don't currently have, Sean has it right now, is Sky Crisis. But the reason I didn't want to wait until meet up with Sean again in order to borrow the card for the profile is because I want to also say that the real slot I want to fill this with is SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight is really good. Of course, it's a Link 2 monster that's really powerful, but unfortunately it's just really ridiculously expensive right now. So of course we can't run it. But if you can afford to get SP Little Knight, I definitely recommend it. It's a really powerful Link 2 monster. But TY-PHON, it seems it's likely that it's going to get reprinted in the tins that are coming out in September. So for the time being, if we're playing this deck for the next couple months, TY-PHON will be slotting into this spot before SP Little Knight ever does. So 1 copy of either of those 2 cards is what I recommend for this slot right here. We run 2 copies of Spright Sprint. Sprint, of course, is really good. It not only works as a good interruption, but also it works as a really good combo starter as well. The reason for that is that Sprint can be brought out by using 2 monsters, including a level, rank, or Link 2 monster. So he's a lot easier to go into than some of the other stuff in the extra deck. But also Sprint has the effect when he's brought out, you can send a level 2 monster from your deck to the graveyard. This of course is absolutely fantastic because it's able to send our Nimble Angler directly to the graveyard in order to get 2 monsters on the field in the form of Nimble Beaver. So that's really good at overextending and fantastic for our main combos to really kick off. But not only that, Sprint also has an interruption effect that if another monster is special summoned while this card is on the field, you can detach 1 material from an AA-ZEUS monster that you control and then target 1 monster on the field and return to the hand. This of course is really good if your opponent is special summoning a monster that can only be special summoned once, because if your opponent manages just to bring it out, and then Sprint can get the effect to return to the hand. Your opponent will have to wait a whole turn in order to try and bring it out again, which I find really good. One cool interaction I had with Sprint when I was playing against Sean once was I was able to activate his effect when Sean activated a Bestial monster, which I thought was quite good because I didn't want Sean to have more bodies on the field. And considering that Bestials can only activate their effects once per turn, getting that Bestial back to his hand means that he had to wait a whole other turn in order to activate the effect again to get another body on the field, which I found to be really good in that circumstance. Sprint is really important. I definitely recommend running 2 copies in this build. I like to run 1 copy of Dharc the Dharc Charmer and also 1 copy of Haita the Fire Charmer. I run a good few Link monsters that are higher than Link 2 on the build, so these characters can be really good at stealing some monster from your opponent's graveyard in order to link line. But not only that, they can just be good at taking out problematic cards your opponents may have in their graveyard. For example, Dharc I find to be really good at stealing some really problematic Dharc monsters that your opponent may have. For example, being able to steal a boss like Mirror Jade if it's in the graveyard is of course really powerful as well. Haita the Fire Charmer is also really good because it's able to steal a fire monster from an opponent's graveyard, which of course Ash Blossom is a really well represented card in the format. But not only that, considering it's able to steal a fire monster, you're able to steal a Promethean Princess from your opponent's graveyard to stop it from getting its pop and special summon effect as well. That's why I find it's really good to run both of these cards in the build. You're able to bring these guys out easily because your Spright monsters are either Dharc monsters or fire monsters. So 1 copy of Dharc, 1 copy of Haita. It's very good to run the extra deck. IP Masquerena is very good. Of course, it'd be a lot better if we were able to run out SP Little Knight, but that's just not what we have right now. But I still find it to be really great because it's able to link someone on your opponent's turn and cause interruptions from there, which of course is really great when we pair with some of the Nightmare cards such as Unicorn and Phoenix. We're able to get some great interruption using IP Masquerena and either one of these cards. So 1 copy of each in the extra deck, I definitely recommend. Most of the time, our main combo starter, we use Gigantic Sprights. We're kind of locked into level, rank, and link 2 monsters, so we don't really go for the final 2 monsters in the extra deck that we run. But I still like to run them because I still find them to be really good. If we're kind of going into a late game, we're able to flood the field and get a link 4 out. So 1 copy of Apollousa and 1 copy of Accesscode I find to be really good. They can just be really great at shutting down games. So if we go first, we set up our board, use Gigantic Spright, and then we're locked into Link 2s. And we're able to use the Spright monsters on our opponent's turn to stop them from getting good plays out. When the turn comes back to us, we're able to use Accesscode Talker to either round off the game, or even in some circumstances Apollousa might be better, just to get a bunch of monster negates out as soon as we can. So 1 copy of Accesscode Talker and 1 copy of Apollousa, fantastic cards to round off the extra deck. We're going into the side deck now. 1 copy of Volcanic Scattershot. This is just really good if we're going for time in game 3 or whatever. Scattershot is of course really good because we're able to dump it off of a Sprint. If we're able to dump it off of our Sprint, Scattershot has an effect when sent to the graveyard. This card sent to the graveyard to inflict 500 damage to your opponent. That's really good for running for time. It can be a bit of a scummy move, but hey, it works. So 1 copy of Scattershot I find to be very important. Getting rid of towers that your opponent may have is really difficult for this deck to do. So I like running Kaijus in the side deck, just in case if our opponent is playing some really difficult to out monsters. Gameciel is just great for tripping over that monster, and his attack isn't too big for us to have to get over as well. So 3 copies of Gameciel I find to be really good for the side deck. 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone I find this to be really good. You just pay 1,000, target 1 spell and trap card in the field and banish it. It'd be great against decks like Labyrinth, so they can't recycle their trap effects off of transaction rollback. But also there's just some decks like Runic that rely on having a bunch of spells. So if we're able to banish those spells and stop our opponent from getting them back, Cosmic Cyclone is definitely very good for stopping that from happening. A bit more inspiration from that WCQ in South America. I like to run 2 copies of Thrust in the side deck. Thrust I just find to be really good because we're able to search out cards that can either be great for setting up a floodgate if we're going first, or even setting up a board breaker if we're going second. For example, with Thrust, there's a few cards in this deck that you can search with it in order to really cripple your opponent. I like to run 1 copy of Dark Ruler no more, just in case we're going second and we want to completely negate all of the effects of monsters that your opponent may have. Dark Ruler of course is very good. 1 copy of Dimensional Barrier. Dimensional Barrier, you want to be very careful what you're playing against when you're activating this, because it declares 1 monster card type, i.e. Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, or Pendulum. Then for the rest of the turn, neither player can special summon monsters of that clear type, and also negate the effects of all monsters of that type while they're on the field. So just be sure that you're not shooting yourself in the foot by calling XYZ while you still have some XYZ monsters on the field as well. But the good thing about Dimensional Barrier is that it doesn't affect Links at all. The card's a lot older than Links are. And then finally, 1 copy of Different Dimension Ground. If you're able to set this off of Thrust, and then activate it immediately during your opponent's turn. It's really good because different dimension ground has the effect when it's flipped this turn, any monster sent to the graveyard is banished instead, which can be really good at shutting down decks like Dark World, Tenpai and stuff like that. So I definitely recommend running these cards in the side deck at this ratio. Definitely really good. And finally, rounding off the side deck, 3 copies of Evenly Matched. Evenly Matched is an MVP when it comes to us being forced to go second. Fantastic board wipe, and one that's really difficult for your opponent to get around. So 3 copies of it is of course very good to round off this deck. So that about does it for the Spright build. Please let me know what you guys think. I'm really happy with the way this deck turned out. I'm really happy with the way I've been performing with it lately. I highly recommend you guys pick up a Spright package and try one of the many ways that you guys can play it. They're definitely a lot of fun. Plenty more content on the channel that you guys should definitely check out. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.